Hello and welcome to Make It Work Tech. Today we're going to be taking a look at what is going to be one of the central pieces of technology for the desk lab, and that is going to be a server. One of the items that I was able to pick up recently was a Dell Poweredge 430. This is something that is not going to be in the price range of affordable. Let's just say that. Unless you are able to pick it up like I did. This is something that I was able to get used. I was able to get actually from an accounting office. One of the places I would recommend that you go and look for technology is if you have a relationship with someone who's in the field like accounting, where they regularly have to be updating equipment in order to meet standards, in order to meet regulations and requirements that they have for keeping things up to date and secure. So for example, what I have here, I was actually able to get for free. And once again, that's about relationships. Do not forget your relationships with those around you. But it is a server that is running Windows Server 12, which is near its end of life. It's actually going to have full support expire coming up next year. And so one of the things that this office had to do recently is they were updating their equipment to stay current, to stay within regulations. They had to set this server aside. So anyhow, it is a very nice, very powerful piece of equipment. I'm going to be using it here in the desk lab as a file server and also as a way to be exploring the utility of services like Active Directory. So anyhow, I want to invite you to come along with me, take a look at the server here. You can see it just peeking over my shoulder there. We're going to get into the guts of it. We're going to see what it actually has, what it's built on, and start to learn a little bit about the functionality of this server together. Okay, so here we are now. This is our Dell PowerEdge 430 server. See the front of it here. We've got a cover on the front. Got a little display up there that'll be visible even when the cover's on. And you'll see right below that display there is the release for the cover. So let's go ahead and we'll pull that off there. So we'll see a little bit of controls here at the top. Looks like a power button there. Some additional displays for the control. I'm certain we'll learn more about that as we are going on here. A little bit of I/O in terms of USB and a little wrench there. I'm assuming that's a control vise, control access of some sort there through the USB port, and looks like a standard USB port to the side. Then right below that, you see here we have our optical drive, just right there. And down here we have our drive bays. This is our RAID storage here. And these are hot swappable drives, hot swappable bays. So just push the button there and you can pull that on out. See in there we've got some standard 3.5-inch hard drives there. So that's something you can pull out any time in order to replace, easily accessible in case you do have a problem with one of those drives. And once again, this will be a RAID 10 setup, so we'll get some boost in speed and access there, but also that redundancy that gives us extra reliability there, and the ability also, once again, to be able to fix that, to be able to make that changes even as the server continues running. We're going to move on around the back here. And you see some of that redundancy that continues here in this server. You've got a dual power supply here. That is something you have both of those plugged in, but you don't have them both running at the same time. What's going on there is, once again, if you have a problem with one of those power supplies, the other will pick up the load, continue working. My understanding is that these are also hot swappable. So once again, if your primary goes out, the second picks it up, and you can go ahead and replace that primary then while the computer continues to run. So we see back here our our PCIe ports. Put any expansion cards in there that we need to, and in fact we're going to take a look at that here directly. Continuing on down the I/O, we got some USB, the iDRAC here. That's a controller access. We'll take a look at that in a little bit as we get things set up and going here. Also, we've got a security card here, a key card access to put in there. And that is something that we'll see if we have to get into. That might be something we might have to circumvent. While we got the server, we did not get the passwords for the server. We received it on the assumption we'd be doing a clean wipe on everything, setting things to go. Here we've got our Ethernet access again, and once again that theme of redundancy. You've got 2 ports to plug into, and once again you have problems with one of your Ethernet controllers cables, whatever it is. It continues running because we got that dual hookup there. And then finally down here we've got a serial port, and we've got our display. Nothing fancy there. I was going to say this is just an looks like a DB15 hookup there. Your old VGA cable there. You're going to be running to the monitor, and so. Like I said, you're not going to be getting any beautiful graphics out of this. This is a utility machine. It is built to get the job done. And alright, I've got the camera back on the tripod here, and now we're going to go ahead and open up this Dell T430 server. Just pull that back there. There is a locking mechanism there. So if that's not opening for you, realize you might need to turn that just to get this unlocked. So here is something well worth noting here. Right here on the inside case cover, we've got a lot of information about how this machine is put together on the inside, even some guidelines right over here. Probably a little bit bright for y'all. We'll see if we can fix that. But anyhow, just to be able to see about how to swap things in and out on the machine here. Even gets down to replacing the CPU I see down there at the bottom. So also up at the top here we've got a quick resource locator. Use that to just scan the QR code there. It will take you to a Dell website with some information about the machine, how to do things on the machine. Some of it may be information that's useful to you, some of it might not be. So let's go ahead, let's take a look inside the machine itself. And I'm going to reposition the camera here again so you can see a little bit better. Alright, hopefully that works for you visibility wise. First thing, largest item in this case, you've got a baffle here. That's an air baffle. It is covering your CPUs. It's guiding air through the fans, running it through at the hard drives too. So just lift that straight up off of there. No screws or anything, just held in place. You got the little posts there that it's set on and just fits into place on everything. And you can see our CPUs here. This is a dual CPU machine. We've got memory that is associated with each of those CPUs. This particular machine has 48 gig of RAM, and so it is once again. The memory bays are associated with each CPU, so you've got 24 gig of RAM per CPU here. You also see we've got our RAID controller that's installed here. It's connecting to SAS drives, the drive I pulled out earlier. Looking at the rest of our I/O, here are our power supplies up here. And once again, here's the board where our bays are connected to, so we've got that as part of the I don't know if you consider that part of the RAID controller, really, but it is part of that interface. Some other things that we have here in this is if you take a look right here, that you may recognize as a USB connector. And something that can be done with these machines is you can apparently attach some USB storage inside the case. And often I believe that is where the actual operating system for the machine is run off of. That way, the drives that we have here in those removable drive bays can be just for the running your storage. Additionally, we've got some options up here. We've got room for some SATA connections up here. There's nothing installed at the moment, but as we get this machine ready to go, that's something we're probably going to take a look at. One of the things, since we are going to be doing some videos with this machine, that I am going to change, we noticed that as we were looking at the outside of the machine, we noticed what we had in terms of video connectors. There's not much, just the VGA connector there. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to move this controller here for the this RAID controller, and use that space then to give us some room to put another video card in. The video card, keeping with themes, it's not going to be anything fancy. In fact, it's going to be one that I've had laying around for a long time. Just going to stick that in there so we can get some additional outputs from the computer that'll hopefully help us with our video recording moving forward. As we consider this, where we're going to put things, this is a good moment to come back to the diagrams that are here on the case. One of the things that these diagrams show us on the left-hand side is exactly what what slots on the board are associated with which CPUs. And so I'm going to study this for a minute and then get back and decide exactly where we're going to be placing this. So if you see right here, there is our diagram and the table telling us exactly what everything is connected to. What I see here is that the PCIe card that the RAID controller is plugged into at the moment is associated with CPU 1, and we'll see. I'm going to try shifting that. I don't know whether it's going to create some issues or not. I'm going to be associating it with CPU 2 now, so we will see exactly how that goes. And to be clear, this is something that we might have to come back and undo later. Not certainly how that's going to work. One of the things I've already determined is this RAID controller is PCIe. It's got 4 lanes. It's in a 16-lane slot, but really only using the 4. So we should be fine moving it over to this 4-lane slot. That shouldn't have any difference. Once again, my understanding is that these CPUs are the same CPU underneath. They're Intel Xeon processors. So shouldn't make too much of a difference. Alright, so what you see here I've been doing is these are your hold downs here on these slots. So we're just going to take the cover, the dust cover off here, and make room. Pull that out. You'll note that I am touching the case here intentionally just to ground myself and remove any hazard of electrostatic discharge there. I'm going to go ahead and just pull that straight up. There's no clips or anything. You can see that there is the card itself. There's something we'll check out there. That looks like it could be a battery. And if it is, it seems like it's showing some swelling maybe. We're going to have to investigate that. That might be something that needs to be addressed also. And we're going to go ahead and just put that right in here. Once again, just straight down. Make certain it's lining up both with the slot and with the I/O plate there. We just push that down straight on in, and it snaps right in place. And once again, we'll see if that works or not. All right, I'm going to grab the video card now. As I mentioned, this is as I mentioned this. Okay. So as I mentioned, this is nothing fancy. This is pretty basic. It's just a Radeon HD 5770. This is not a new card by any sense. You can probably pick one of these up on eBay for something to the tune of about $20 or so. And just going to use that to give us some additional I/O here. You see we got DisplayPort, we got HDMI, we got our DVI there. Just to give us some options available for being able to do some recording off of. And you also see that this is a two-slot port. This is part of why I was moving that RAID controller to be able to put this in. I wouldn't have the room that I need to be able to put this in a PCIe 16 slot if that RAID controller had remained in place where it was. We are going to have to remove, because of that being a dual slot, we do need to remove another cover here. Set that aside for the moment, and we'll go ahead and just once again we're going to line that up, line up in the slot there, and just seat it into place. See, it clips into place there, and take all these, push these back in, secure these cards, and that is it. Pretty much ready to go. Put our air baffle back into place once again. Make certain it's not interfering with anything we've installed here, and it is. Alright, so that's a problem with our RAID controller there. So I wanted to keep that RAID controller back from the video card, but I think we're going to have to move that back over. It's going to be putting it back on that first CPU, which might be a bonus for us. Might make things a little bit simpler in terms of not having to tell the computer to find it on a different CPU, but that shouldn't make a difference. I did want to keep it away from the video card just because of airflow. Not airflow in terms of blocking fans. The fans are on this side of the video card. That shouldn't be an issue. This isn't a modern card anyhow. It shouldn't be producing that much heat. But just in terms of space between the cards themselves. As you'll see, we do have on this RAID controller, looks like some heat sinks on that side of the card. We shouldn't be running this very hard though. I think everything will work okay, but we do want to be careful about that. Alright, so we're going to set those aside. Once again, we're going to come, make certain we're grounding ourselves, pull this straight up and out, and then shift it over, get everything lined up properly. And once again, we're on a PCIe slot again, which is a longer slot, so you want to pay close attention to where you have things. And once again, this is a PCIe slot. Once again, it's a longer slot, so you want to pay close attention to where you have things, make certain that key's lining up, and then we're just going to push that down in. And as you can see, that is not a lot of space between those boards. In fact, it's close enough that I'm not certain why I decided to put it all the way over on that. If we put this baffle in place again, let's take a look at that. Yeah, we're going to have the same problem with either of those slots that are set aside designated to CPU 2 there. It does look like it's going to need to stay right there, so we'll put that in, and once again we will see how that works. Hopefully it'll work okay. Hopefully it won't give us any problems. Alright, so setting the baffle in, Everything is lined up here. We're on our posts good. Everything's clear and set. We'll go ahead, put this dust cover back in here on this I/O plate. And I don't know if it's really considered an I/O plate, but I'm not sure what else to call it. It's close enough. Again, the purpose is just to help keep a little dust from coming in from those slots. Set that down, snap that down there with the RAID controller, get everything secure. And I think we are about ready to go then. We'll put our case lid back on, the cover back on the case. Just snaps right down. And that's it. That is our Desk Lab server. And so I thank you for joining us here at Make It Work Tech. And one of our next videos will actually be booting this thing up and trying to get everything going. So thank you once again. Thank you for joining us.